All right, that's everyone. So we are going to talk about um, each day, and each is probably each and numerals are my favorite kind of one of my favorite features about Ruby. And so you looked at it, this bit of code in your breakout groups. And so Cheryl, what issues could potentially crop up? Like what were some problems that you saw with the code that we had?
Yeah, it's pretty repetitive, and also
Uh-huh.
if depending on what you're trying to do, if you change the order of the array, it might cause
Yeah.
a problem. I don't know.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Kevin, something else? You are muted.
I feel like with the index, calling it index, it's like very specific.
Uh-huh.
What if I want to have everything instead
Yeah.
of just grabbing specific things?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest challenge is like this is something that this approach we're taking here doesn't really scale. Like if for 3, it's like whatever. I'm just gonna copy and paste twice in addition to my first typing. But what kind we kind of have the problem when we deal with like 5 things. Like 5, I can still manage 5. I just got to hit Command or Control V a couple more times. But then when we get to 100, we get to 1,000, we get to 1,000,000. You know, like when we think about it, on Amazon, how many items there are. If you want to do something to each one of those items, like, are you going to hire someone to just hit Command V all day? I'm like, no, that's kind of ridiculous. Like computers are created to handle these repetitive tasks for us. So we can use something called an enumerable to kind of take care of this for us. And so one of the first terms I'm going to use is a collection. And in Ruby, a collection is essentially, in plain English, a bunch of things. When we're speaking about a collection in technical terms, we're referring to an array or a hash. And today we're just going to be talking about arrays. And the next term I want to use is called iterating, or iteration or iterating. And when we iterate over something, we are doing something multiple times. Each is a method that iterates over a collection. It will go through a collection and do something for every single item in that collection. Each will allow us to do something for every element of an array. A single iteration is a single pass over an element. Iterating means we're going through the whole thing. So what we can do is let's do this. We have characters equals, and we have Phoebe, Rachel, and Joey. Did anyone watch that Joey spinoff? It's like I just saw him, like, why? Why would I want that? Nobody wants that. And so when we have this this collection, let's say we want to print each of them out to the screen. And what we would do is we would use each in this fashion.
Hey, Mike, the Phoebe comma is inside the string.
Oh, thank you. And what I'm going to do, oh, my terminals, there we go. And we see it prints out the screen. And let's kind of break down what this is happening in this bit of code. Characters, as we said, is our collection. It's our collection because it contains an array of 3 names. In this case, these names are strings. And .each is a method that we call on collections. In this case, we're calling on characters. Everything between the do and the end is what's referred to as the block. The block is what gets run for each element in the array. This will only ever run for as many times there are elements in this array. So because we have 3 things inside this array, it is going to run 3 times. Greg?
So I have a question about the puts. So in the snippet of code you gave us in Slack, if you puts the character of an array at the position 0, like just in IRB, it would return the name and then next line nil? And then is there a reason that when you do it inside of each, there is not the extra nil character in the next line?
Yeah,
But
we're
there
gonna
is
we're gonna
in-
talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so everything, like I said, everything between the do and the end is the block, and the block is what runs for each element in the array. And because there are 3 items here, the block is going to run a total 3 times. Character is what's called the block variable, and so each time we go through, character will equal whatever thing we're currently holding on to. So the first time we iterate over it, character is going to equal Phoebe. The second time we iterate through, it's going to equal Rachel, and the third time through, it's going to equal Joey. And so in general, our syntax for each is going to be look like this. It's going to have a collection. I cannot type today. Like this. We have a collection running each on it. We have a block variable, and the block variable is whatever we do. In what general naming is that your collection is going to be a plural word, and your block variable is going to be a singular because you're using the block variable to refer to one thing at a time. The important thing to remember here, and going to kind of Greg's question, is that each will return the original array. Puts will print something out to the screen but return nil, and that's why that behavior works the way it does. And this is going to make more sense when we start working with different numerals, because different numerals are going to return different things. Questions to this point about each? Cool. So we talked about each a little bit, and the idea is that there are going to be many times to use each, right? Like, yes, right here, all we've done was you printed every single list element in a list. And what you can do is that you can use each to kind of change everything in the collection, make a new collection out of this original collection, look for specific things in the collection, or create something new. And the idea is that each is this very generic method that we can turn and kind of bend to do many different things with it. And so let me delete this. And what we're going to do is that we can show you like how we've printed something out. We can show you how we can transform every single thing inside a collection. So let's do names equals like. Right, and let's say I want all these names lowercase. We could do and so if I were to run this, what do we think would happen? Joshua, what do you think?
So it should ultimately print out on a new line each of the names, but all in lowercase.
Okay.
With the P, maybe that's the same line. I can't remember the difference, but
Sure. P is just P is what's called, it's a combination of puts and inspect, which gives us the brackets for an array.
oh,
right.
Okay. So then it'll print out the array all lowercase.
All lowercase. Anyone have other thoughts? Is everyone in agreement?
I don't think it'll change it to lowercase.
Okay, we got all right, so I think we have 4 people that disagree. George, why do you disagree?
The original array is going to be returned with each.
Okay. Why?
So that's the nature, that's the return value of each.
Okay. Cool.
We didn't save it as a variable.
Yeah, let's see if that's true. Yep, it returns the thing. And this is like kind of what goes back to what we're talking to about what each does and what's puts does. Well, we don't like this is kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. So to kind of get around that, what I would do is I would do something like this. I would do downcased names equals empty array. And in here, I would now shovel in, oops. Oops, I need to make this downcase names. And we see it's all downcased. We know that each is, the term that I would like to use for each is it's non-destructive. It does not make any changes to our original collection. So because we know that each won't ever change that collection for us, we need some kind of container to store our new collection. Some terms that people may use for this is like a placeholder, an accumulator, an aggregator. I like using the word collector because it, we're collecting the things, aren't we? Like you can use any kind of term that you like that makes kind of sense. But I think that some people like to use the term accumulator, aggregator. The thing is, like to remember, is that when you're using each, you're generally going to have to use something like this. You're going to have to use this pattern where you have this collector that you put things into, and then you do something with the collector when you're done. Without this placeholder, this collector, you're not going to be doing whatever you want. Right, that's kind of important using each. As you go forward and you learn more about other enumerables, you will prefer to use other numerals instead of each and not use these placeholders. Any questions about what I've done here so far? Cool. Nope. Michael?
Yeah, I missed the when you're comparing dot each to the puts function. Why were you doing that at the start? Sorry, I missed that. Yeah,
so what dot each does is it returns the original collection. What puts does is that it prints something out to the screen but returns nil. Right? It's really important to remember that what a method may do to the screen and what it returns can be significantly different. But they do so in a predictable manner. So like puts will never, return something else out of nowhere. It'll work predictably. Curtis?
So kind of related question. I know there are a lot of like destructive methods that are like the same method, but with a bang. Is it like better practice to always use a non-destructive method or like?
It depends on what you're trying to do. I generally do not like using destructive methods because I feel like there's a chance I might need that. And it also becomes a very, very big pain to debug if you have a bunch of things that are modifying something and you don't know where something's getting changed. I generally lean towards non-destructive stuff unless unless there is a specific use case for it. That I would do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. So we've seen this one thing where we've done something to an entire collection. What I'm going to do is that we're going to use each to do something completely different where we get a subset of collection. And what we're going to do, so let's kind of take a step back. In the last example, we did something to every single thing. What if we wanted to use each to filter stuff out, right? And I have this fantastic array of numbers because that's like, that's what I do in my spare time, make arrays of numbers, and I want to sort them. And let's say I want only even numbers because even numbers are cooler. And how I would do that would be something like this: even numbers equals empty array, right? Because we need that collector. Numbers dot each do number, and what I'm going to do is that if number dot even I'm going to shovel that into my even numbers. And when I run this, hopefully if I've done this correctly, I'll get an array of just even numbers. Yep, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Right. And all we've done here inside this block is that we have just had a simple Boolean, like simple conditional, saying like, hey, if this number is odd, I'm sorry, even, we're going to put in there. If not, we're not going to do anything to it. And just with that, we're using this each method to kind of filter things out. Any questions about this little bit of complexity here? We're slowly layering on more and more complex things. All right, if they're not, it's about time for a break. Let's be back at 11:35, where we will do some more fun things and give you some opportunity to practice on your own. Feel free to interrupt if you ever notice I'm not recording. Cool. We've got a subset of a collection. Now we can make something new. We are going to take this number array, and what if we wanted to get a sum? We wanted to get the sum of all these. We can do total equals 0, and then we can do numbers.each do number total plus equals number n puts total. I don't know what this is off the top of my head, but 55, that seems about right. Anyone disagree with that? Cool. And so we've seen here that like, hey, we have iterated over a collection to create something completely new. Like this is not even the same like data type. Like this is not even an array. It's just it's an integer, right? And we can do this as well. Like this is totally one way to do it. Now, like now there's a different method. There's a method called sum that's relatively new to Ruby that does this for you. But like at the sound of sounding like curmudgeon, back in the day, we had to sum our numbers by hand, and this is how we did it. There's now some method that'll help you do that. Cool. Any questions about this making this new thing out of an array? It's super funsies. And the last thing I want to show you before giving you an opportunity to practice is that there's actually a single line syntax where we can go ahead and where we can move everything to a single line. So let me actually copy and paste this because it's a little easier for me to do. We saw earlier that I just printed these out to the screen. We can convert pardon me, I just got a new keyboard and it's a little weird still for me. This here is the exact same thing as if we did these two, between these 3 lines of code over here is the exact same thing as this 1 line of code here. We've simply replaced the do in the end with squiggly brackets. Personally, I'm not a fan of the single line syntax because very rarely will you just have a single line inside your enumerable. And honestly, the do end syntax is a lot easier to read. In your code base, if you're doing a certain syntax one way, you should be consistent between the two. And usually that means just sticking to the do and end. Curtis?
So I read somewhere, like saw on Stack Overflow, that like the curly braces have a different like precedence level than a do block. Like when does that become a problem when like
you're never going to encounter that? Okay, you're never going to encounter that. I think you may The problem is that curly braces also mean hash, which we'll learn about a little later on, and there can be some tricky stuff with that. But honestly, like you will probably never in your career have an issue where that comes into a problem.
Okay.
When using for like a do and end block. Will?
Yeah, Mike. I think my question is sort of general best practice around the curly brackets and whatever.
Mhm.
I'm sort of gathering from the few lectures that readability is sort of the priority
Yep.
in Ruby. Is that kind of the best practice overall
Yep.
versus conciseness?
Optimize
Okay.
for readability, understanding over anything else.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. So if there are no other questions, we're going to move you into breakout groups again where you get some practice. And I'm going to post this into your Slack channel. If I can find the Slack app. Where's the Slack app? Behind the Zoom window, of course. Cool. So work on this with your partner or your new best friends. We'll take until about 11:57 where we'll wrap up. If you don't finish it, that's cool. I just see if you don't finish it, move on. Just get it done sometime at your own pace. It's just good practice. And we shall be back. Let's do 1 minute.